Hi, my name is Poeartistry. I am excited to welcome you to James Poeartistry Productions. You are tuning into an incredible experience known as Poeartistry Gold, where we delve into the art of commentary, storytelling and poetry. We aim to bring you inspiring and thought-provoking content.
This is a Poeartistry Gold moment by the author James Lynch.
Hi, perceptive readers. This is James Lynch, and welcome to Poeartistry Gold number 157. Let me tell you, this morning I got the sun and the wind blowing through my ears. So you know what happens when that wind get to going through or go in one ear and come out the other. Remember those cartoons where they used to make whether it was cartoon animals or persons fighting, or even when they were using the towel to wash their face, to wash their head, and then they took the towel and put it in one ear and then pulled it out the other. That's the way the wind feels when it's blowing through my face and ears. Well, I mentioned to you before, I got my coffee in my hand too. I shared with you before that sometimes it feels when you're in nature like God is talking to you himself, you see. And that's what I want to reference in this Poeartistry Gold number 157. This point, the way that the world has developed through the centuries, remember, for the most part, it has been designed that it just wants to function in a certain way. And if you live in areas and localities where you can still practice your faith freely, then that's totally on you. You see what I'm saying? That's the way that it's been designed in a lot of areas. And the reason why it has been that way is because people truly do have many diverse beliefs, as there are creations on this earth, you see. And a lot of those beliefs are come from persons putting a lot of attention on the creation in itself. And that's how a lot of faiths have developed and things of that nature. Even though, as I mentioned to you, those creations actually came from one ultimate source whose title is God, but his name is one who becomes. That's what his name means. And so depending on what language you speak, you may still pronounce it in different ways. But at least the fact of the matter is, he does have a personal name. Now, with that being said, remember I told you the way that the world is designed, the way that it is set up, that even in games, you see, you can have a lot of very intriguing experiences with different games. I think about Dungeons and Dragons. You see, have you ever heard of that game? And let me tell you, persons who have played it, some of them can tell you not only about their enjoyment, but there were some instances on even certain specific days where it got pretty deep for some of these persons. It got pretty deep, whatever it is, the maze, the dungeon that they went into. And so in there, though, that's the point that I want to mention. In Dungeons and Dragons, there are different beasts, different gods and godlike beings that you can fight. Some will give you gifts, and some will protect you at times. Some will fight with you at times. But the whole point is, even in that world of itself, you have different persons with different belief systems who will align themselves with these gods, okay, that may help them in this way or that way, or godlike beings or godlike creatures. Now, with that being said, the longer persons play, see, even in those games, they can end up changing who they will align themselves to, what type of god they may want to get gifts from or what have you. Let me tell you from one person that even though it turned almost like into an interview, it was still more so that it wasn't meant to be an interview. It was actually just interesting conversations going back and forth at times. That one of the points that was referenced, that it's not really just that easy always making a transference of power and other type of gifts and stuff that you accumulated, you see, when you actually make such a, I guess they looked at it, call it as a drastic change. And so some persons just, rather than go through all the hoopla, you know, they would rather just go ahead and start a new character themselves. You see, just start a completely new character. Well, that's in games, okay? That's in one scenario of Dungeons and Dragons. Well, why am I sharing this with you, the information that you have so far? You have to still do your best to be able to enjoy yourself, but still stay in the reality of the real world. And in the real world, there really is a real God as well. There are real, in the spirit realm, really, powerful creatures, the spirit creatures, there truly are. So, with that being said, keep this in mind, that even though in games persons can play and end up saying, I don't want this character anymore, I don't want to be aligned with this god anymore, or what have you, you can do that in games, you can do that in scenarios, you can do that in role play, you can do that in cosplay. But in real life, you can't do that. Even though people will say, oh, I don't need God or this or that, that's absolutely untrue. You know, sometimes persons will bring up that, well, look at all these other nations that came about and they weren't, knowing who God was and this and that or what have you. Well, this is the fact of the matter. Have you ever heard of that expression? A lie can travel halfway around the world before the truth even puts his boots on. You see? Oh my goodness, man, the wind blowing through my ears now, probably. And and the whole point is, you can mention about those civilizations, but all the same, when I ask, well, how was the ethical system developed? And some of them would be proud to say, see, they were able to even develop laws, etc., principles, even without God. And so my reply to this day is, they really didn't. It was two things going on. First thing, in the world, everywhere so-called God, or God having some, prophet or human being to go to this area that way, wasn't there, you can still be sure that then his enemy was there. And his enemy, remember, the great mimicker, the great deceiver, the great want to be God himself, want to be God Almighty himself, he was the one sharing different things, different knowledge with people and stuff, the same way he did in the flood of Noah. So the point is, that's one of the first points. And the second point is, I want to mention that God still had put something within us human beings in our conscience that we act and carry out matters in an ethical way, you see, at times and stuff like that. And the reason why we do is because it's still something that he innately had put in us. Some people over the centuries have worked hard to strip that out of themselves with the help of his enemy. But all the same, we still had those couple of things going on. So this is why we still were able to develop and create this great society we have today. You know, when you look around the world with technology, etc., it is still because God has something, the real God has something to do with it. Allowances, promotions, and everything else in certain ways that we don't even know about, and we especially don't see at times. And if God wasn't involved, make no mistake about it, if there really wasn't no real God at all, then when you think about people, orphans, widows, ones who just come from a poor upbringing and background and stuff like that, I mean, it just would be even more disrespectful and hell on them more than anything else, because of the insensitive nature of just how bad people can get. I'll tell you, that one movie or that one series, even, you know, maybe you heard of it, called The Game of Thrones. That shows that it's almost like, man, if you wanted to live, if you wanted to be rich or what have you, you either had to be very strong, cunning, or once again, you had to use your precious resources, if you know what I mean, to still get somewhere in life. And often, you're practically, especially if you didn't have that brute strength, you certainly had to be cunning and use so many other type of resources that today it's like, you know what? You can be still more appreciated even when around the right people, just for your mind and spirit. And that's what I'm going to share about that end. So when people say, you know, we don't need God or what have you, you know, I kind of reference, well, if you're playing Dungeons and Dragons, and I understand, if you're playing this other cosplay, I understand it's all just entertainment, it's all just games. But in real life, let's get back to reality. We still need to continue to show the respect for the God Almighty. And yes, even when ones that, you know, have strived to do their best to follow him, and some have fallen off the wagon, like when Jesus, you know, day was, it still doesn't change the fact that, you know, this is his creation. He created this world. And at the very least, we never want to go around saying there should be no acknowledgement or worship of the God Almighty, because you know what? That's just very wrong, incorrect, and that's what just can't be tolerated. You can't be saying you're a speaker of truth, and you can't even say that there is an ultimate source, you see, and most people give it the title of God. Take care of yourself. Have a wonderful day.